V12 power, ready, set, go. Oh!
Guys, today we are going to drive two of the most impractical G-Wagons that you could buy. The first one right here is the fast G-Wagon. This is the V12 twin turbo G65. This is the most obnoxious engine you can get in a G-Wagon, which there's really not a reason you should need a V12 in a G-Wagon, but behind it is kind of the opposite. This is, if you want to climb over everything you see, this is the G550 4x4 squared, whereas this one has a V12 twin turbo. This one is just the regular G550 V8, not even the AMG. So it does struggle to move a little bit, but as you can tell, it can probably climb over anything you'd need. So today we're gonna drive one, then we're gonna drive the second one, and we're gonna see, is it better to have a small G-Wagon with a big engine or a big G-Wagon with a small engine? We're gonna start with the G550 4x4 squared, the big, tall G-Wagon. So let's climb in, and I do mean climb, because look at this ground clearance, and go for a drive. So let's start. For starters, I don't know why there's carbon fiber right here, because clearly this is not a lightweight car. Same thing with the fenders right here, they're carbon fiber for whatever reason. But let's start. This is actually a slightly different shifter than you get in the other G-Wagons. I don't mind it at all. So let's get out of this parking lot and get this thing on the road. So driving this car, the first thing you'd notice is, even though it looks like a big scary monster truck, in reality this car is actually pretty small, probably smaller in almost every dimension than, you know, an Escalade or anything like that, because this generation G-Wagon is really narrow and pretty short. The only thing you kind of have to watch out for is the big fenders that stick out on this car, but other than that, honestly, it's just really tall. Here's the thing about a car like this that's so big and scary and is very off-road oriented. We live in a country where most people are not going off-roading, and to be honest, most of these are going to sell, probably going to be in like Beverly Hills, or that did sell, I mean, and they're just going to be driving around roads like this. So you end up with a car that sits way higher than your regular G-Wagon, but is just a little more uncomfortable, less aerodynamic, worse on gas, heavier, but just looks really cool. But that's the key part, looks really cool. Because let's be real here, nobody buys a G-Wagon for the ride quality. Nobody buys a G-Wagon for the value of money. Nobody buys it for the interior features. People only buy it to look cool, because if you really wanted to get the most for your money and just to get a great car, for the same money as a G-Wagon, you should just get a GLS and you get a better car in every single measurable way. And that means that we got to judge this G-Wagon not based off normal car logic, but based on G-Wagon logic, which is, how cool does this car make you look? And that's a regular size SUV in front of us. We are like 2 feet taller than it. And that's kind of what you want. You want to stick out. People that buy G-Wagons aren't trying to be low-key and be practical and be comfortable. So even though this is probably the worst G-Wagon to drive, that might just make this thing be the best G-Wagon. Now let's talk about value for money, because the one thing that people might not understand is that this car is probably the best value for money G-Wagon you can get, because yeah, it's not cheap, but the new G-Wagon 4x4 squared, which to be fair is a 63, it is an AMG engine, so it does have the power to go along with the weight, but that's about double the price of what these are going for. And not only that, there's a stop sale on them. So the hype on that got really big really quick when that car came out, but now you can't really get them. A lot of people that actually got them returned them to the factory because they just kept on getting recalled, kept on breaking, and it's just not a safe car to drive as of now, and I don't think they have a fix for it yet. So when you buy this car for half the price, realistically, do you really care about the little features and slightly more comfortable seats and a better ride and a bigger engine? Or again, do you just want to look cool? Because if you just want to look cool, spend half the price, get this, it works and you can drive it. So I do have some experience driving these, and I do know if you want to go anywhere, you have to switch the modes down there from comfort to sport, because otherwise the car doesn't really move. But even when it's in sport, I mean, it moves, but it's definitely not a sporty car in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I mean, a big G-Wagon with a small engine is probably not the worst thing in the world, because again, you're not racing in this car. This is all about the look, it's all about the feel. And yeah, once in a while, if you don't want to go off-roading, this is going to be the coolest thing you can off-road. I've actually driven one of these pretty much through a little river. They do great. The ground clearance is absolutely mental. I don't know of any other production car with ground clearance like this. And again, you're just driving the coolest G-Wagon that nobody really has. But there is somewhat of a reason why not a lot of people have these G-Wagons, and people people don't really tend to think of this. So this G-Wagon, which is 2 to 3 feet higher up than pretty much any other SUV, this needs to be parked somewhere, which means you can't live in a condo, because most buildings have a clearance that maybe an F-150 can squeeze into, but definitely not something like this. Now, if you live in a house, most garages are definitely too low for this. So the only people that can own this are people that live in a house with a really, really, really tall garage door and that don't ever need to go and park underground anywhere. So for the very rare person that fits that criteria, that would want a fun G-Wagon with a very tall garage and has the money to spend on it, and probably has a few other cars to daily, because this is definitely not practical, I highly recommend it. This is a great car for you. But if that's not you, let's go drive the G65 and see if maybe that's a little bit better. Now, away from the big one, onto the small one. But man, the small one packs a punch, because as you can see, V12 twin turbo, 600 horsepower in pretty much a lunchbox. So this is going to be pretty interesting. So we are in the G65, which honestly looks exactly the same as when we're in the G550, but about 3 feet lower. And weirdly, the V12 is a lot quieter. Okay, so let's go. The shifter in this one is a lot like other AMG cars from this era, so a little more familiar, but other than that, they're about the same thing. So I did call this G-Wagon impractical, even though it's, you know, same size as a regular one, but it's impractical because it has a V12, which means you're going to be spending a lot of time right here, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. So very rare sight, after we filled up the G65, you guys can kind of see the roof there, but that's an SL65. Double V12 Mercedes is a very rare sight. So driving in comfort mode right now, it feels pretty much the same as a 63 would, but if I press right here and I put it in sport, what's gonna happen if I floor this lunchbox? Whoa, whoa. Okay, this thing is actually fast. This is like real power. This is not fast for an SUV. This is just fast, period. This thing is a V12 strapped onto literally a lunchbox, a square lunchbox with 600 horsepower, and it just goes like hell, and it goes all over the place. V12 power, ready, set, go. Oh, what? This thing is so fast. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect this whatsoever. I thought this thing is gonna be like a G63 or a G550 with a little more power. I haven't driven a properly fast SUV like this in a very long time, and this is smooth power delivery. The V12, people kind of ask because the power difference is not that big from the 63, but man, is this thing so much smoother on the delivery. This feels like quality power. It doesn't feel like they just squeezed whatever they could get out of a V8. Man, is this a fun car, but like, I gotta say, I feel like if you put this engine in something like a GLE, something that actually can hold the road and doesn't just move around everywhere if the road, you know, is a little not completely flat, or if there's a little bit of wind, something that can actually handle the power and has an okay suspension, you could have potentially the fastest SUV money can buy. But in a car like this, I mean, it's just like a joke. It's so hard to handle the car. Once you floor it, the car just kind of does whatever it wants to do. But I love it. It's so stupid and it's so fun. So you get kind of two ends of the spectrum with these two G-Wagons of the type of fun you get. One of them, you're just driving an obnoxious big G-Wagon that everybody's looking at you and everybody just thinks you're some crazy dude that's just trying to show off with this gigantic car. But this thing, yeah, some people might look at you because, you know, to a normal person, this is a G-Wagon. There's nothing more special about it. Maybe 5% of people that will see this car actually know what's up, because when you see that V12 badge, that's not something you're going to see on a regular G-Wagon, but you really have to be a car guy to know about that. So that's very interesting, because the type of person that would be impressed by a regular G-Wagon is not the type of person that will be impressed by this, because if you know what a G65 is, you don't think the G63 is the best car in the world. But if you see a G65, you're like, okay, this guy likes to have fun in life. He didn't go for what's in stock or what's easy to get and get a 63 and save a good amount of money. This guy, for not a real reason whatsoever, just decided, you know what, today I'm gonna buy this thing with a V12. And in my opinion, there's nothing more badass you can do, and that's why I love the V12 Mercedes. I love the 65s, because there's not much of a practical, logical reason for you to buy a V12. But just because there's no reason for you to buy a V12, That's exactly why you should. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I came into this thinking, you know, the G65 might be like a little cool, but it can't really overshadow the 4x4 squared, which literally overshadows this. But driving this G65 right now, just looking at all the people around me, all the simpletons that just think I'm here driving the same G-Wagon as every soccer mom, that's what made me fall in love with this, because these guys, they don't know how cool it is to, for no reason whatsoever, choose the V12. So how do we know which is better? Ask yourself this. Do you want to be obnoxious and loud but only have a small V8? Or would you want to be low-key, quiet, and not show off to the world that you have a twin-turbo V12?